the fashion indigenous realm.
Because right now we're currently at um where we originally met with New Mexico House. We're here with South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. And anyone who's listening, if you hear the music in the back, shout out to Twins Rooftop and the Rileys as they're allowing us to like have their space to do this podcast. But yeah, we met with New Mexico House. You are a fashion designer about to debut. Is this a new collection? Is
Um,
have people seen this before?
yes, in part. What I really wanted to feature was like more like the new looks are my own prints. I was a part of like an internship with this program where I'm from, which is like Farmington, New Mexico, and it was in collaboration with San Juan College and NMSU, New Mexico State University.
Uh-huh.
They brought up a program called the American Indian Business Enterprise, and what it basically is like an internship to like help incubate, small businesses, indigenous businesses, and entrepreneurs. So I was
With New
really,
Mexico State University.
yeah, yes.
Okay.
New Mexico State is the one that initiated that AIBE program. And,
Okay, cool.
the branch of it was, with San Juan College. And they have this studio space where you can do like sublimation, 3D printing, laser. So I utilize all that to, like really market and promote myself. And so,
Okay, so are you
um,
an Aggie?
no, I'm a Lobo.
Okay, through and through,
Yeah,
okay.
I graduated from the University of New Mexico with a BA in behavioral psychology. So yeah, this collection is a mixture of what I showed in New York City with Teton Trade Cloth. I was one of 3 designers to be chosen by Teton Trade Cloth nationally. So that was a huge honor. And to have first ever Indigenous New York Fashion Week to be a part of that.
Okay.
And
Well, before we get into a little more about into the future and present, tell us who you are. Where are you from? And what do you do?
all right, well, as Cameron mentioned, like my name is Jolonzo Guy Goldtooth. And I just had like this epiphany when I through this like modeling because I modeled like my junior year of college
Uh-huh.
with this agency called Native Model Studios. And I, went to the auditions and, the hair and makeup artist was indigenous, the photographer was indigenous, and the models were indigenous. However, the clothing that we wore and, posed with, like for the photo shoot, none of it was like, indigenous made. I mean, there was like some accessories,
Mm-hmm.
it clearly I could see like the clothes were, from a commercial, mainstream, like, Urban Outfitters,
Okay.
Hollister, American Eagle. And it just like dawned on me. I was like, you know what? Like we have like all these like, artists. I was like, why aren't the clothing, like by like an indigenous person?
Mm-hmm.
And so I experienced that I wasn't too much as far as the front person, being on the runway and stuff like that. I felt uncomfortable, but I just had like this like strong fascination with like the behind the scenes and like the designers that were up and coming. And I know how to sew. I grew up with like a lot of seamstresses, like my
Okay.
aunts, grandmas.
Is that
They
where you learned from?
Yeah, I'm self-taught, and so just, like, observing because, a lot of, indigenous people are visual, learners.
Mm-hmm.
We've
I could
learned
definitely
yeah,
100% say that
yes.
myself.
We learn by watching, and we've been taught to do that, you
Can't
know
teach me math,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I can do art for sure.
exactly, yes, and so, I yeah, with that epiphany, like, I just got into it, like, just I graduated in 2009 at the University of New Mexico, and the recession was in 2008.
Right.
So, a lot of, like, myself and my colleagues and my peers, who we graduated with, we couldn't find, like, jobs with our specific, like, uh, you know
Were they artists as well?
well, I surrounded myself with, like, artist in college. I always spent time, like, in the fine arts, area, but, I focus on, like, behavioral psychology or psychology.
Okay.
So I fed, like, my artistic being, by hanging around, like, artistic people and, the theater people, my best friend in college was, hair and makeup or costume and makeup, um, uh, degree.
Okay.
And yeah, so after that, like, it just was like a snowball effect with like my creativity. Like, I got noticed like through social media. So my success and my, audience came from like social media. And,
Mhm.
it's
Is this YouTube at the time?
no Facebook.
Okay.
That was back when Facebook was only for college students, where you could only, register to be a part of Facebook if you
Okay.
had, like, a .edu, address. So,
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
that's how Facebook was founded, was, like, by, you know, uh, college, university, students.
Okay. I think I remember joining Facebook when I was like 12, and it was like 2012.
Yeah.
And even then it was like Tumblr and MySpace.
Yeah,
Were
oh my
you
gosh.
were you on MySpace?
Oh, yeah, you had to learn all, like, the code and everything to, like, develop, like, your page. Yeah, like, that was, like, back in the day.
That's when it was really hard.
Yeah, and, learn how to, like, develop, like, your page, like, learning codes from everybody else, and yeah, it was definitely, like, a different time.
Okay. So are you a full-time fashion designer in Farmington, New Mexico?
No, I'm not. My career, is being an indigenous urban fashion designer. That's my love and passion, and the reason why, like, I put the urban in there is because myself, going back to, like, who I am, I grew up in, like, an urban setting,
Mhm.
but, I, hold dearly and hold pride, like, who I am as an indigenous person.
Okay.
um, I don't know my language, and that's a huge part of, like, being indigenous and actually, like, being Navajo Indiana, which is the tribe I'm from.
Mhm.
And, I grew up, like, in an urban setting. Like, my grandmother, she grew up, like, in the boarding school system, and so, she was shunned with, like, talking her language or, having any, like, indigenous or ceremonial practices. So,
Right.
she didn't want that
And
hard.
speaking up about
Yeah, and she didn't want that hardship of what she grew up with, like, in the boarding school system, where she was chastised, for doing anything, like, indigenous.
Mhm.
And so, she brought up my mother, in California and then came back to, like, New Mexico.
Okay.
And so my mother didn't know the language too much, and so I grew up, like, not knowing the language or too knowledgeable of it.
Uh-huh.
Um, so
And you kind of raised outside of the reservation?
Yeah, on and off. I mean, I love, like, going out to, like, my family ranch, like, in the summers or the weekends, just because, you know, I I'm a firstborn out of, like, my siblings and such like that, and I just, like, found, like, serenity out at the ranch. Like, I could really, like, be myself and, like, have, like, my own, thought process as far as, like, just in my entire being. So, it's a relief to be out there, because it's just, like, me, myself, and I, and, you can just,
Are
like
you an only child?
no, I have 3 younger siblings, but, I am the only, one who, um, within my siblings that has, like, a different father,
Uh-huh.
and then I have a stepfather, and so those are his, like, 3 younger
Oh,
siblings.
I see.
So I was a bit of, like, the black sheep because
Were you even the oldest?
yeah, I'm the oldest. Um,
So you kind of hold that too. It's like you have to almost be the responsible one. Is that
yeah.
how you
Oh,
felt?
yeah, no, definitely.
Okay.
Because my parents were, um they had me when they were young. Like, my mom and my biological father had me, right after high school and before they went to college, and so I was mainly raised by, like, my grandmothers and my aunts, like, on the family ranch, which is, on the reservation,
Okay.
and so, that's why I definitely loved, like, and wanting and yearned to be out on the family ranch because I had, like, strong ties, like, out there, and it's home.
Okay.
if I'm gone for like a while, like definitely like in college, like I got like emotional, like getting onto the ranch. I was like, oh my God, like I'm home. And just like all these like memories like come about because my grand aunt, who turns 101 this month, she was a weaver,
Wow.
so she has that artistic sense.
Uh-huh.
And like I said, like I grew up with like seamstresses, like, and just like observing them, it just was like, that's like the way I was raised. Like I already had like the knowledge of how to like, work a sewing machine and
Okay.
so that knowledge was just like innate in me. So it's in my blood, it's in my DNA. So that's the way I grew up.
Okay. I see. Did you go to school on the reservation or was it public school?
Uh, Actually, ironically, I did go to like this Native American like boarding school. Like
Oh.
I consider myself like a res kid foremost, and because I grew up like on the reservation. I mean, people think that I grew up like in the city, which I partially did,
Uh-huh.
but I still had that. It was half and half. Like it was a
Right.
duality. So I enjoyed that because I got like both worlds, and that reflects like in my work, my fashion. It's in a sense like indigenous, but at the same time it's very like high fashion, and that's like what I love. I've always like grew up like admiring like fashion. This is like back in the day where the whole concept of like trends and fads, and whenever like someone uh start to dialogue, oh, like the trend now. I'm like, trends and fads are obsolete because, we have the means of like technology at our hands.
Mhm.
You can see like through Instagram or social media, like a fashion, like in Japan or, in Europe. And, you know,
But they also could be very different.
yeah, and they're all very, like, diverse, and, like, what I encourage people, is, like, make your own fashion, like, don't, follow, like, what you see, like, in a retail store, be unique, and that's, where JG Indie came about. JG is my initials, like, Johan's a
Okay.
gold tooth, and Indie, is, like, short and slang for independent.
Oh, I
So
see.
my whole concept is like, an independent mind for the in it or in it an independent brand for the independent mind. So my brand is indie. Like,
Yeah.
I admire and I like to people watch and see the ensemble that people put on. I'm like, oh wow. And it brings like inspiration because it's just like a huge mixture. And, in this world, which is like a melting pot, you have to like, stand out, be yourself, be prideful of yourself. And that's what like my collection is. Like
Okay.
it's very diverse. And I like working with like different type of materials, different type of mediums.
So before we get into that too, like you had mentioned that you're like an urban designer. Urban, is that how you describe it?
Urban indigenous.
Urban indigenous, or you're saying not necessarily full-time fashion designer?
Yeah.
You are.
That's the dream is like, to
So you also carry something part-time.
yes.
Okay, is this in the art scene?
No, it's the total opposite. Like, that's where it comes in with, like, my degree. Like, I'm a home health care provider,
Uh-huh.
and I tend to, like, people who aren't necessarily handicapped, that they don't have, like, the capability of, like, doing, like, tasks that, a person of, like, good health and, so I tend to them, but a lot of it is like, they just like want someone to talk to.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I have a current client that I work with, and he's 24 years old, and he's legally blind, and just like the conversations, like that it's in a sense like being like their therapist, but helping them to like deal with like
To go through the day.
yeah, and, I love that, like, I love caring for people, and it's interesting because that, degree goes into, like, my whole fashion sense because, like, I'm very calm, cool, and collected, and I have, like, tunnel vision because I'm so focused on, showing my artistry out there,
Okay.
and I always get, like, the comment from, like, the backstage people, they're like, "It's so crazy back here, how why do you look so calm?" And I was like, "Well," I was like, "I'm determined." And that's where, like, the whole, degree helps out because, like, I keep things, like, calm, cool, and collected, and, because if I was frantic and disturbed and yelling at people,
Mhm.
that shows on the runway. It shows, like, the models with, like, their strictness and their
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So, I get it. I mean, even too, like, I can't say I'm an artist full time. Even t like, when do you? Because I get asked a lot is, like, how do you know when to, like, change your titles depending where you go, right?
Um, yes,
Do
like
you tell everyone your background that you're also, like, part-time caretaker?
I wait until like, the conversation or the dialogue like, develop itself. Like I believe like in the art of conversation.
Okay.
I definitely do like to, get to know a person and like, therefore like within the dialogue, it, questions like sprout about. They're like, what do you do? Like, and if they don't know me, like I'll like, definitely like I guess in a sense like expose like, oh, like I'm an urban indigenous designer and then, like, that's, like, my career,
Native
and yeah,
born hustler maybe?
yeah, I tell them that that's my career, but, like, my side gig is, like, doing, you know, the kind of day job of, like, being a home healthcare
Mhm.
provider. So it's definitely, like, a balance, and that's, like, what I believe, like, in, people's life. Like, people, like, think that, you need to, like, stay positive and only positive, but I think there's always negative and positive, and that shows, like, in my emblem too as well, like, my seal that's connected to, like, my brand.
Or even too, like, stay in one industry.
Mhm, yes.
Being an artist anywhere is expensive, and it's, like, even to having to, like, decide, "Okay, who's gonna fund me or how am I gonna fund myself?"
Yeah.
What is an advice you would give to someone who's maybe going through the same thing of, like, "I wanna start this business or I wanna be an artist full time, but actually I don't have that type of resources," or where can I find those resources to?
I would say, like, definitely, like, first, like, start your passion first.
Uh-huh.
The business savvy and business part will come later, and that's definitely, like, how I've developed, like, myself, my brand in, like, my business, which is an LLC, and, like, even currently, I'm still learning how to do, like, the business portion,
Mm.
because 'cause I'm micromanaging, uh
Micromanaging who?
Myself, like me,
Okay.
myself, and I, like, in my brand, but it's brought me, like, huge success. So like, as I mentioned before, like, my evolution has, like, first, like, taking a crack at it, taking that risk, and I'm so happy I did. Like, first was, like, epiphany, and then later on, like, I was bored because, like, I couldn't find a job. I was, like, a server,
You gotta make those
and
opportunities for yourself. I get it.
and so, the
So
elders who, taught me how to sew and stuff like that, I was just like, "Well, might as well do something. I have all this fabric and I have all these sew machines to work with. Might as well, like." Yeah.
get my hands a little
Yeah.
started on something. Okay, so I gotta ask, what was there like a turning point or a risk you took that changed everything?
Um, well, my first ever show is, like, very significant because I have a college friend who was one of the directors or coordinators of this, like, enterprise on the reservation called the Native American Arts and Crafts Enterprise, and, it's kinda like an upscale, like, trading post, like, they sell, like, jewelry,
Okay.
clothing, and all that, and he hosted, like, a fashion show during, like, our, Navajo Nation Capital, fair,
Okay.
and, he asked me, because I was just posting on Facebook, like, social media, like, "Oh, hey, I created this," and so he recognized it, and then after that, like, I showed up with, like, 8 looks, and my aesthetic and, like, I was, like, so self-conscious because it was so different from the other designers because they had, like, more of, like, Navajo
Traditional.
traditional look.
Okay.
Some of it was, like, m contemporary, but you could tell it was, like, more so, like, traditional, and, like,
Like
mine,
for
like
traditional events?
yeah, traditional events, but also, like, more contemporary, like Navajo, velvet and,
Okay, I get it.
mainly, like, velvet and silks and, like, cottons and, like, it still just had the aesthetic of, like, being more traditional, and,
How was
uh
it going into that scene?
I was, like, so nervous because I had my 8 looks and you could tell it wasn't, traditional
In the same
Navajo.
line.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I got so many, like, comments, and it was so funny because back then, like, I kinda took offense to, like, people saying, like, "Oh, it's like, it's different," and I was like, "Why can't you say, like, it's
It's
amazing, it's
unique.
beautiful," or
Yeah.
yeah, and I've heard that so many times, and I even hear it till this day, and I take it as a compliment because It is different, and, like, my mindset is, like, just, like, thinking outside the box, and, like,
Mhm.
as I mentioned before, I get inspiration from all aspects, like, different tribes,
Right.
different parts of the world I've got to visit.
Traveling to different art and
Yeah.
craft shows.
Yeah. No, I mean, this has given me the opportunity to travel internationally. On my business card, it says, like, international indigenous urban fashion designer,
Okay.
because I am, and I take pride in that now. And it was funny too because once I had, like, my breakout with that, through social media, I was recognized by a director for this fashion show, um, in New York City,
Okay.
and he contacted me through my Facebook page because I started a Facebook page of, like, JG Indie, and he invited me to show in New York for New York Fashion Week,
Wow.
and never would I have fathomed at the very beginning that, I've always wanted to go to New York, and I've always loved fashion, and
How long did it take you from, like, starting to, like, now you're at New York Fashion Week?
oh, geez, like, just, like, a month and a half?
What?
Yeah.
That's a while. That must have been great news to tell your
Yeah.
family, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, my family's very conservative
Okay.
and,
You were mentioning, so, like, in Farmington, there's a lot of Mormons.
well, not just Mormons, it's a very, like, conservative, like, area. Like, I love where I come from, and,
Did you grow up Mormon?
no, Southern Baptist.
Okay.
So that's very, like, very restricting, or, like, very conservative in itself. So it was a strong, like, growth process to, um, do, like, the total opposite of, like, my degree, and do fashion. Like, I wasn't shunned about it or anything like that. Um, and it's like a total 180 from, like, when I started to now, because, um as I mentioned, like, I'm from Farmington, which is a very conservative area.
Uh-huh.
Since then, I have, like, a huge community support. Like, I mean, I identify myself as gay,
Mhm.
but it's something, like, I don't flash out there. Like, I consider myself, like, very conservative as well, because that's how I grew up. And
Mhm.
I'm very respectful, and I'm very humble. And to have, like, just, like, a strong support, or, like, recognition from my community and also my family, because I am open to everyone. And so I take pride in myself, my identity,
Yeah.
and that goes on all spectrums. Like,
Okay. So, was there a point where, like, maybe failure kind of came, and did that help build your career?
um, I would say, just, like, health-wise was, like, not a failure. It just, like, restricted me from being, like, creative. Definitely, like, the, COVID was a part of it, but actually, like, everybody was, like, just, like, in a downward mode, but that's, like, actually when I
What
made,
did
like,
you call it? A doubt Warner bro?
a downer.
Oh, a downer
Yeah,
bro? Is that what you said?
downer downer mode.
Downer mode,
Yeah,
okay, during COVID.
yeah, and, I actually, like, I was like, okay, like, I could be, like, in, isolated, but I was like, you know what? Like, people are making masks, and I don't know. I think I probably made like 3,000 masks,
Wow, that sounds
and
like
I made
good
money
too.
while during, like,
Yeah.
COVID. And actually, like, during COVID, San Diego State University recognized me, and I made a lot of income from being a part of that, because they
Uh-huh.
commissioned me, and I sold my mask for like 30-50.
Whoa,
Yeah,
wow.
because they held them in their, like, student, artist museum,
Okay.
and I also sent them some garments that I worked on, accessories, and that definitely, like, helped supplement myself. So that was, like, um, an outlook on life,
Okay.
how you can, when they hand you lemons, make lemonade. It was kind of that situation.
Getting that, like, passive income.
Yeah. Um
Okay.
So that was, like, one that was an upper and downer, or downer then upper. The other is, like, injury, like, within, like, myself. Like, last year, 3/4 of the year, I was immobile because I fractured my ankle, and thereafter I fractured, like, my femur. So I really couldn't be mobile to go places or go to shows. So that was just last year, and I, made products and I sold online, and I couldn't work my, home healthcare provider position
Mhm.
because I was injured. And so, I just like isolated myself like within the studio, fed my creativity and, sold
And
through like
this
my
was just last
website.
year.
Yeah, through like last year. And it was a blessing in itself because because I pushed myself like through physical therapy
Uh-huh.
because I got the call of a lifetime with like Teton Trade Cloth from like
Okay.
Leslie Jordan. She's one of the CEOs of like Teton. And last year was like my 3rd year showing with them, but I just, through like my artistry, like my aesthetic, I stood out. So they wanted me to, um, show a collection with their materials, what they sell like on their website.
Uh-huh.
And they said like, create like a shopping list. Like, what do you envision? Like, here's like, the raw material, like the broadcloth, imitated like elk's teeth. And, so I went to sketching. And then after that, I looked through the website and I, matched like whatever was on the website to like what I was going to create.
Okay.
And so that was just like a cherry on the top because, I worked so hard and I was like down because I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't participate in shows. So I literally like pushed myself like really strong through like physical therapy, and they were surprised about how much like I recovered because I did not want to walk around New York. I didn't want to walk down the runway with like a cane to assist myself.
Uh-huh.
And
So this was all in hopes that you would start walking by
yes,
New York
like
Fashion Week.
fashion pushed me to get, healed.
Uh-huh.
And not just fashion, but to show like my my marriage between, you know, being indigenous, but also mixing it with fashion, and not just that, but like, enticing my whole title of like being an urban indigenous fashion designer.
Okay.
And so the downer was like, trying to get better, but, it just like, I believe like life is a balance. And so, you're going to have the negatives, you're going to have the positives. You're not going to have just one of each. So,
Mhm.
I believe in the whole lifestyle of like duality and balance.
Okay. That's great. Um, who would you give like a shout out to right now? Like who has um who someone was early in your career believed in you before others did?
Um, so this was like a highlight of like, my my evolution. I did apply for Project Runway.
Uh,
I loved watching the show at the,
we love that show,
yeah.
yes.
I, you know, I, I
Did you get
was
in?
I was so close.
Uh-huh.
So first, like, there's 4 interviewing processes.
Okay. You sent a video.
No, yeah, you do send a video, but, the first one's just like a phone interview.
Uh-huh.
And I was surprised because I got the call and I applied online and they're like, "Hey," like, and I thought it was like, someone joking. And then they, just like this interview, they, ask questions and everything of such. And they're like, "Okay, like, well, we'll review and everything like that.
Okay.
We have to discuss this with the panel." And then thereafter got the second call and they're like, "Okay, this is the, send in a video. And then after that, once you send it, then we'll like,
Oh my
have
god,
like a
it's so
second call."
competitive.
And yes, and I got to go to LA for the
Uh-huh.
third one,
Wow.
and that was in
Is
front
this
of
when they like kind of like they're able to help you get there, or you have to kind of like push yourself
oh,
consistently through and through and like fund everything?
yeah, no, I had to fund everything, like my travel, like my stay and such like that. Good thing I was a part of this grant program called Capacity Builders.
Okay.
So they help to like, finance as far as like the flight and also like, stay there. And thereafter, like, I take care of like the rest. But I was so close. I showed you show like 3 looks, and I thought that, like, showing, like, different strong looks from different, like, shows,
Mhm.
um, that, it would be good, but, I got constructive criticism that I should have shown, like, something from one collection, and
Oh,
I kinda didn't
interesting.
understand that, so I was like, "Okay," I was like, "I'll take that into consideration," and you'll
For
see that
notice
in
next time.
yeah, and you'll see that, like, in my collection, like, I like to work with, like, different mediums
Mhm.
just because I really want to show people, like, how diverse I am and, like, what I could work with, and that goes, like, with, like, recruiting models. I love all body types. I love all physiques. And, I hate the comment of like people um commenting or like, oh, like, I wish I could wear this, but I'm not that skinny. And I'm like,
Mm.
and I have to educate people about how fashion works because they think like, the mainstream, like,
It's a
like
one person
Chanel.
type.
And I'm like, models are just like a blank canvas. It's not about the model, it's about your work. So what you see on the runway are sample sizes. And, the models like I mean, if you really know like about like fashion, you really want to market yourself,
Uh-huh.
you just want the models to like, look all alike. Because it's not about focusing specifically like on their makeup or their hair. I mean, there are other artists who love that aesthetic and I applaud them for it. But for
Mhm.
me, like, it takes my heart and soul and my identity as far as being indigenous to show what I have created. And so, that's my whole concept.
Okay.
Um, and I share that with, like, all my collections and, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Wow. Well, what do you think is a skill that people underestimate even in like the art and business side?
As I mentioned before, I started out as, like, far as, like, the artistic side first, and then, like, I realized that I needed to get into, like, the whole, economics of it
Mhm.
and, like, make money, make a living out of it. Um, so I would say, like, most people are surprised of, like, just, like, what you put together, especially since I, consider myself, like, an urban indigenous, like, designer.
Okay.
As I mentioned before, like, that term, like, different. Um, and it's just all about, um, uh, being true to yourself.
Right.
And going back to your question before, the person who, helped me or, like helped me with like my epiphany was Patricia Michaels. And that's the reason
Oh,
why
okay.
it was like after she was on Project Runway that she was at the forefront. And I was like, you know what? I can do this. Let me try it out. So that was like a crazy moment. Like I could not like still looking back fathom that I got so far with that.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, I am on, like, a friend basis with, like, Patricia Michaels, like, she can pick me out in a crowd, and I'm, like, very, like, happy and prideful of that because you're recognized by, a very, established, designer who's from New Mexico, who's from Taos Pueblo, and I'm a New Mexican, she's a New Mexican, she's indigenous, and so, yeah, like, I asked her, before I left to, like, LA, I was like, "What's your advice?" Um, and she's, "Just be true to yourself." And you can see that within, like, her, fashion and her aesthetics. Like, I love, like, her work and what she, puts out there, and it's very, like, much recognized because it
Mhm.
is different. Her, um, ensembles, what she creates are, like, on the red carpet, and, like, there's, like, indigenous celebrities who are wearing her work, and that's something I really want to, entice because I, wanna show the world, like, indigenous fashion and how big of a movement it is right now because, we have, like, native artists as far as, like, actors, fashion designers, makeup artists, and it's
Yeah.
a huge movement, and people are definitely, like, recognizing, and it's awesome, like, I was, part of, like, at the very beginning, being a part of that, and I just love, like, seeing all these, like, individuals, like, who are younger than me, the youth, like, going about, like, taking the risk as I did,
Taking the risk.
and just,
And
like
that was something even to like um another podcast guest had said Lynn Locker is taking the risk, trying it out. And even though it was funny though to hear her say, she was like, you don't have work life balance as an entrepreneur. Do you have work life balance?
um, well, as I mentioned before, life is about balance, so, Um, it's definitely like a development and like your learning process. Uh, yeah, it's I believe I for me, I like I said, I mentioned, like, it's all like a balance. Um, you just have to, take the bull by its horns and like, learn from it and like, because how can you learn or develop yourself as a person or your business as a person or your artistry as a, art or take yourself seriously or have people take yourself seriously, you know, you can't learn from just all the positive or all the negative. Like, I believe it is a balance
Okay.
and I take it as that. And, I'm having fun with it. I'm
That's
building
good.
my
That's good.
lifestyle.
Awesome. Well, what industries do you believe that in New Mexico are about to explode in the next 10 years?
Industries. Oh, wow. Definitely like the film industry.
Mhm. It's already
I
kind of.
Yeah, no, I like how
Yeah.
like Albuquerque, they call it what is it, Berkeywood?
Oh,
I don't know if you ever heard that term.
wood?
Berkey, like Hollywood, but Berkeywood.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, because the film industry is like booming in Albuquerque and are just like New Mexico in particular. And with that, of course comes fashion or
Music.
costume designers and
Styling. Yep.
yeah, I love working with like Goldie Tom and she's actually here doing the hair and makeup for the fashion show tomorrow and she's within the film industry and you know, just to see her evolution as far as, like, the both of us, because she actually came with me to New York Fashion Week when I
Oh,
first was
no way.
invited, and, working with her, I'm like, "Do yourself, do you," because like, we're just on that whole, like, mindset of, like, we just, like, get each other, and it's funny because, like, on this trip, like, a few of us, like, the other designers, like, we're just, like, getting along, and it's crazy because, like, we're finishing each other's, like, sentences and the conversations we've had just since yesterday is like, "I was just thinking that," and so it's been fun, and yeah, so, it's just a huge movie, like, a movement, but I feel like, film is definitely, like, a huge industry that's growing with New Mexico, and also, like, with New Mexico is, like, the indigenous people involved,
Yep.
and I'm just excited, within 10 years, I think, that is all just gonna be
Integrating with
yeah.
each other.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely, yeah.
Awesome. Well, what does success look like for you in like the next decade?
Oh, wow, I consider myself very, like, successful in itself, even though, like, right now, before I had to, like, apply for, like, to be a part of fashion shows, but it's a huge honor when I get invited, and it's been like that thematically, like, lately, because, like, you just as Patricia Michael said, "Be yourself," and I've been doing that, and, like, that's, you know, what I love is, like, my mind is somewhere else, like, my mind and life is, like, in the cosmos, and I take hold of that,
Uh-huh.
and you know, I just feel like I need to stay strong and true to that. And like success for me is, being a teacher, being a mentor. And that's a huge success in itself because like for the past 5 years, even during COVID, um, I teach on my reservation, sewing and designing.
Mhm.
And I took like a step back this past summer in 2005. And I was like, wow, I've been teaching for 5 years to, like, youth, and, like, the youngest are, like, 6 and 7, and
Wow.
I'm like, they encourage me more than I encourage them, or, they teach me more than I teach them because, like, to see them develop like that, like, it's crazy because, like, if
Bringing
I
in new
yeah.
perspectives.
Yeah, and I was like, if I had, like a mentor, someone, who is like, youth and, like, has the title of being a fashion designer, uh
Back then?
back then when I was growing up, who knows, like, our whole indigenous, like, fashion and artistry movement would have been like, something that was like, more coherent now to like the mainstream commerce.
Mhm.
And, but,
So get
success,
involved. Go surround yourself with some
yes.
kids.
Yeah. Because they take things like a sponge and
Yep. That's
I just, like, love that, and I'm just excited to see, like, within 10 years, like, that is my success, is to know that I was, like, a
influence.
part of the foundation that encouraged them to be in fashion because I tell like my students that, fashion is not just about clothing. Fashion is a huge industry.
Mhm.
It's about the clothing, it's about the jewelry, the accessories, it's about the hair and makeup, it's about the photography, it's about the journalism, it's about being an interviewer. And, it's a huge industry. And so, like, I teach them all that, uh, it's all those aspects. So if you don't want to
Yeah.
focus on clothing, you can be involved in fashion with like all these different, like,
In the artist
titles.
community.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my success that within 10 years to see like the youth that I teach
Mhm.
become, something strong and have that support. I support them. And yeah, so yeah, definitely like, I come from a very humble, beginnings. I'm still humble. And so, yeah, nothing of like, oh, like, like I want to be signed on with like a main company or such like that. Yeah, that is like successful and I'm not talking down about it for other like people, indigenous people who are, that's like what they're seeking. Cause like,
Mhm.
that's an aspect of myself that I'm seeking too. But, it just like brings like very strong holistic sense of like, pushing it forward.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Jalonzo, thank you so much for coming on Leaders of Enchantment. Would you like to give a shout out to a business or a mentor who maybe some people aren't paying enough attention to yet?
Oh geez. It's hard to like, pinpoint just like one person like specifically. Um I mean, they're not very like known. I mentioned to you this that my grandmother, or well, actually my grand aunt, uh she
And
yeah, grand aunt.
okay.
Um, but being indigenous, like, we either say like auntie or like, grandma, but because of like her age, because she turns 101 this year.
Right.
So that was the foundation
So
of
shout
like,
out to the
yeah.
grand
And
aunt.
everyone's like grandmothers, like shout out to all of them, like, because they are our elders. I mean, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't take pride in being, just indigenous, but, to take like their teachings and like evolve it to have it survive within this world that's a melting pot. And um, yeah, without her, she actually started me with, like, sewing because, like, as I mentioned, like, I graduated after the recession and I had to move back home like other, collegiate peers because, like, we couldn't, like, make it within, like, our, degree.
Uh-huh.
And so she was the one that brought out her sewing machine into the kitchen. I was like, I wonder what she's gonna be sewing. And so she came up to me and she's like, I know you know how to sew. Don't just like sit around and like, watch
Do
TV.
something with your
Yeah.
hands.
So she's like,
Okay.
make, and she told me, she's like, make me a dress. And I was like, okay, like a traditional dress because she dresses
Okay.
traditional. And that's basically how it really started. And, there's a language barrier between her and I because like, she's old
She speaks
school.
what?
Yeah. She's
And
fluent.
only?
No, she understands English. She can respond back like with broken English.
Okay.
And she'll talk slow to me in Navajo. I can very rarely like understand it. But it's kind of like a sign language thing. Like she'll point or kind of
Oh,
like
yeah.
so
That's how
that's
I
how
used to get
yeah,
around.
yeah. But yeah, definitely a shout out to my grand aunt or my grandmother for basically, pushing me and supporting me. And yeah, shout out to everyone's like, grandmas and grandpas and their elderly that,
Mhm.
definitely like without them, it this wouldn't be possible.
Mhm.
This interview wouldn't be possible. This
And
fashion
your
show wouldn't be possible.
relatives.
Yes. So shout out to all of them, our elders.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alonzo.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Cameron. Like I am so happy to meet you and, collaborate with you. The show tomorrow evening will definitely, I think, be like one of the pinnacles for South by Southwest. And I'm so happy to, be in collaboration with the New Mexico House.
Shout out to New
And
Mexico House for bringing
yeah,
us.
definitely. Yes. I've never been to Austin, but just experiencing within like, the 24 hours, it's just like a lot to take in.
Right, and
And
that's what we were saying was that, like, we've never stepped foot outside of the airport.
yes. Um, I've had a layover here and that was about it. But like, to just take in like the culture and just like see how, it's so diverse. I
Mhm.
mean, I know Texas is like known as a very conservative area, but to, be here and just like see, the opposite of like what people like, see Texas as.
Right.
It is a very prideful, like, state, which I mean, it's good. Um, However, this is a total, like, 180 to, like, my perspective of Texas, and so I'm so
No, I
happy to
get
be
what you mean.
yeah, and, yeah, so I'm gonna go back home, like, Texas pride, but Austin pride. Proudful would be like, "I've been there," and, like, heck
We done did it.
yeah, exactly. But, this inaugural event, I'm looking forward to it, like, developing, evolve, and its success and, like, the other artists that, will be a part of it, like, in the future.
Mhm.
Like you had mentioned, like, 10 years from now, like, it'd be awesome if, like, 10 years from now, like, this becomes, like, one of the main events that, people come to. And it's already, like, a huge thing right now,
Yeah.
as I've seen, and that's, like, the excitement and the anxiety for tomorrow, and the other
The
designers are in the
anxiety.
same page, and, yeah, so I just I'm, taking it all in and getting inspired from the city
Mhm.
and, the country lifestyle mixed with, like, an urban, so it's like a Texan country urban,
Yep,
style that
but
I've
we're bringing our
seen.
pizzazz.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Um, a few of the models and the hair and makeup artists, like, we went out, yesterday for dinner to a barbecue place,
Uh-huh.
and they were stagnant and, coming along with, myself and, like, the other I call them, fashion moms, and so we got to the food venue first, and they showed up, in, like, their boots and Daisy Dukes and, like, like a bustier, but they had on their turquoise
They're
and
representing.
yes, I mean, like you right now, I that was one of the things I noticed. I was like, "Oh," I was like, "I love your squash blossom." I was like,
Yeah.
I just, like, love the whole combination, like, and I'm like, "Alright, we need to, like, show, like, these people, like, how to, like,
How
you
the New
know
Mexicans do it.
yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah, so, um, yeah, I would say wherever you visit, like, take it all in and talk to people,
Mhm.
if not, like, talk to people, like, like, people watch, I mean, uh,
For
definitely,
sure.
yeah.
Awesome, well, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much.
Lynn Locker,
Mhm.
welcome to Leaders of Enchantment podcast.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
Tell me about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from?
I grew up in Seattle, but I've lived in New York for many years. I am a retired lawyer. I practiced law for over 35 years. My practice was M&A and corporate finance. And about 15 years ago, I was taking stock of my career and what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I realized I could count on one hand the number of women clients I had. And I started thinking about where women can exercise the most power. And
Uh-huh.
I think it's in politics or running corporations. So I went on a mission to meet women entrepreneurs. And
Okay.
that led to what I'm doing now and what is my retirement gig, which is Project W.
Awesome. We love women.
Yeah, yeah,
We love working with them.
yeah.
That's great. What is one thing people would be surprised to learn about you?
Could be that it took me a while to realize that as law is a very clear linear path,
Mhm.
and lot of us who went into law are risk adverse.
Uh-huh.
And frankly, at the time I graduated from college, there weren't a lot of options for women. But now I've discovered this whole new world of women and men too, but we work with women entrepreneurs who really taking big risks to build companies that are changing the world with their solutions. And so I'm taking more risk myself. I invest in women-led companies in areas that I think have the potential to be transformative, particularly healthcare and climate.
Okay. Awesome. So tell me, you reside in New York City,
Yes,
but of course, you're not no stranger to New Mexico.
right.
How did you first get started in like moving? You're not from New York.
And I grew up in Seattle, but I've lived
Okay.
in New York for a long, for 25 years.
So your journey's
Yeah,
kind of been like
yeah,
traveling
yeah,
around
yeah.
as a solo like entrepreneur in a way, and as well as lawyer. Have you always been?
Yeah, I've always been a lawyer until now when I'm no longer practicing law, but the firm I'm with has supported what I'm doing with Project W. But if the question is what's my connection to New Mexico?
Yes, in a way as well. Yeah, tell us about you have a favorite excursion, like you love Santa Fe.
Well, what took me to New Mexico, I love opera.
Mhm.
And I started going to the Santa Fe Opera, which is a summer festival, uh, July, August, every summer. I started going to the opera in Santa Fe probably 25 years ago.
Mhm.
And it's magical. The opera house is up on the hills just north of the city. And more recently, about 7 years ago, I joined the board of directors, and that takes me there for the summer. And
All the time.
yeah, and
Every year.
it is wonderful. Not only do I get to hear wonderful music, and we were talking about Indian market, Spanish
Yes.
market. There's a wonderful chamber music festival. But the last couple of years, I've really gotten to know more of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in both Santa Fe.
Opera.
Well, but in the sort of no, in the business
Okay.
community. So
Yeah.
startups in Santa Fe and Albuquerque and venture capitalists. So my New Mexico connections have expanded beyond the arts.
Okay, that's awesome. And to be even a part of the board, you had to kind of be asked, or you kind of how did you get
Yeah,
into
I
board?
had yes, you have to be asked, and I've actually now I'm in my 4th year as president of the board. So, it's a great honor, but it's
Check out
also
Lynn
yeah,
Locker, president of the board.
but it's a wonderful organization, and, we were talking about the pueblos. For 50 years, Santa Fe Opera has worked with a number of the pueblos in the area. We have the Pueblo Opera program
Okay.
where we there's a separate council from all the pueblos who organize various events, and it's a wonderful collaboration. And I don't think there's any other opera company in the world that has such wonderful neighbors and learns from the culture and the
And each
arts.
other.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's awesome. So let's get into a little bit of a business insight. What would you say, because I want to get into Project W.
Yeah, okay.
Tell a little bit about the audience about like what is Project W and you work with women.
Yeah.
Why? Or not why,
Yeah.
but like how did you get into like switching?
So I mentioned that I had very few women clients.
Mhm.
In my practice, I helped big companies buy and sell each other. And I do really think women lead differently. I had the privilege of couple weeks ago hearing an amazing woman. She was the former president of Spelman College and the CEO of CARE International. And she talked about how women are servant leaders. That is, they lead to serve their
Community.
stakeholders and
Okay.
their communities. And I think women are much more collaborative leaders. And I think it's so important more than ever right now when a lot of our corporate leaders are not leading to serve their communities and their employees, that we've got more women in the C-suite. So that's really what motivated me. And we run Project W, we run a number of programs for women-led companies. We've got one I'm very excited about. We've got one coming up in mid-April for climate tech companies. And we haven't finalized the cohort. The application closes on Monday. But these women who've applied are just remarkable. I mean, PhDs in mechanical engineering and geothermal sciences. There's one woman who's been at NASA for many years.
Wow.
And they're building companies that are solving big problems. And I think that's what's so exciting about what we do, is to see how committed these women are, who are taking a lot of risk to build companies that are solving really intractable problems.
Okay, and that's in climate
And climate, and also we do one in healthcare,
and health.
which is we've also had some amazing companies. We also partner with JP Morgan, which is a wonderful collaborator of ours, on a consumer products program. And then we run a separate program, which is not industry focused, but for very early stage companies founded by women who have been historically underrepresented and who face systemic barriers to progress and to access to capital and networks. And that's called our Tech Equity Hub.
Okay. Okay. Well, talking about a little bit of business, when you're evaluating an idea, what would you say what makes you say this is worth investing in?
So to be clear, Project W, we don't invest in companies. I have invested in a number of companies. So I think number one for me is the founder. Do you believe that the founder is the right person to be tackling this problem? Doesn't mean she's going to succeed, but does she have the right expertise, the right team, and, more than anything, the real commitment to see this through? And then also what the need is and where the market is. Is it or do people need whatever the solution is? And I think it's complicated now with AI, because so many tools and products can be developed through AI, but now we're really looking at, is the solution that someone is building something that OpenAI or ChatGPT just can't build itself?
Right. Okay. So, like, even how well they can handle stress.
Yeah, that is also, I mean, it is you're often putting your personal finances at risk. With women entrepreneurs in our society, as you know, still women tend to be the primary
Bread makers.
bread
Just kidding.
maker, caregiver, you name it. So
We're constantly serving people.
yeah, that's right. That's
Serving
right.
looks and
That's
serving
right.
people.
That's right. So it just, I'm amazed by the women who can, really have a pretty much 24/7 job running and starting a company, and then take care of their family. And
But even too, like, it's crazy to, we can handle so much more than we actually think
yeah.
on a daily basis.
But I think the
That goes
reason,
for anyone.
yes, I think that's right. And I think with a lot of the women we work with, because they're often trying to solve a problem that's very personal to themselves or their communities or their families. So it's mission driven. And, having that purpose, I think helps overcome a lot of the stress or the obstacles they may face dealing with the rest of their lives.
Okay, so kind of tapping onto that, what's an advice you would give someone trying to build something in a smaller market, maybe like New Mexico?
So would I wouldn't be constrained by the market. I mean, now with the internet, with all the tools we have, anyone in New Mexico can be building for a national or global market. I mean, you're not really constrained.
Hmm.
I know many of the people I know in New Mexico want entrepreneurs who start their companies in New Mexico to stay in New Mexico. Don't
I
leave.
get
Yeah,
it.
yeah, don't leave. But so one of the companies that has been through our program, Baby Quip,
Uh-huh.
is an
They're in
amazing.
healthcare?
No, they're amazing. They're a consumer company. It's an amazing platform where you can rent baby equipment. So if you're
Okay,
traveling,
interesting.
yeah, if you're traveling, with the family on a vacation and you don't want to lug around a crib and a car seat and all this stuff, you can rent the equipment at your
How
destination.
many locations are they at?
They're uh throughout the country. But Fran lives in Santa Fe.
Okay, the owner.
Yeah, yeah.
Shout out to Fran.
Yeah,
That's so
you
interesting.
should she'd be a good person for you
Maybe
to
she'll
talk
be
to.
on
Yeah,
soon.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, um, what's one mistake you see founders or creatives make early on?
I th I think that one of the biggest mistakes is not doing the legwork to understand what your customer wants. Um, and, we saw this when I was practicing law all the time too. We assumed that we knew what our clients want and what the we knew what the legal problem was, but we assumed we knew how to solve it. But it often wasn't the case. You need to talk to your clients, you need to talk to your customers and understand really where their pain points are, and if what you're building solves it, and if what you're building is something they would buy, which is
Target your market.
yeah, and really talk to your customer. I mean, 'cause I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they think they know what their market is, but they really need to get down in the weeds and just, customer discovery. In fact, there's a program that's run through a lot of universities called the I-Corps program that's for science-based companies,
Mhm.
and the first day of that program, they send the participants, the entrepreneurs, out in the field to go find potential customers and talk to them and find out what they want.
Got to
So
do that
yeah,
research, those
exactly. Yeah,
surveys.
exactly.
Okay. So, you're the president of Santa Fe Opera
Mhm,
Board.
mhm,
You're still doing that, and now you're taking on the role as the founder of Project W,
mhm.
as well as what are you as a founder? I'm sure you're juggling lots of different
Well,
little
so
things.
I founded Project W probably 10 years ago as a passion project while I was still practicing law. So it's an evolution, and now I retired from the practice of law 4 years ago. I'm very fortunate. My firm supports I have a budget. It's modest, but I have a budget, and I can draw on all the resources of the firm. So I can
The law
tap
firm.
yeah, the law firm. So I could tap into the expertise of lawyers. We have a fabulous marketing department and design team that designs all our websites. I'm here at South by with a little team of 5 other people.
Okay.
And so it's really I've got it pretty easy.
Okay, we like to get spoiled
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes.
exactly, exactly.
No, that's great. Well, we're also happy, Leaders of Enchantment, to be here in Austin,
Yeah.
Texas right
Yeah.
now. So that's awesome. So talk to me too. Your background has always been been a lawyer.
Mhm.
Is that as well run a lot by women?
Well, that's an interesting. I really think women are broadly underrepresented in almost every field. But in the law, for the past, I would say, decade,
Mhm.
law schools are 50-50 men and women, at least, maybe more the women than men. But in law firms, in large law firms, there are still, at best, a third of the partners are women.
Mhm.
And I there may be a lot of reasons for that, but I think one of the primary reasons is as you progress in your career, it's just about the time you think about having a family, and as we were talking about, it's the women who really have to take the major burden of raising the family and being at home, so it's very disruptive of your progression to partner in a law firm.
In like the professional
Yeah,
side.
yeah, the professional side, and, I think that's true in corporate life generally. I mean, it just as you wanna progress up the corporate ladder, if you need to take 5, 6 years out to
Take care of
have
kids.
and raise your family in those early stages, it can be really disruptive.
Mhm. I see. So what was Lynn like as a kid? Were you
I was pretty diligent. I was not a fun kid.
No, you
Yeah.
were like straight to the books.
Yeah, I was pretty diligent. My brother always tells the story. I have a brother who's 3 years younger, and we went through. I grew up in Seattle. We went through public schools, and he always tells the story of he'd get sent to the principal's office because he was misbehaving, and there I would be in the principal's office typing away because I was volunteering to do typing. I don't really think that's true, but
Yeah.
that's sort of. Uh, I was not I was a pretty passive, obedient child.
Okay. I see. You were in college. Is that when you kind of like started to get into the career to like you want to be a lawyer?
I actually chose law by default
Okay.
because when I took 2 years out after college, but when I graduated from college, there weren't a lot of options for women. I mean, I could have go to medical school, and I really didn't want to do that. Business school had only a few years before started admitting women, and so I sort of very glibly say, I went to law school because I didn't want to become a stewardess, which was
Mhm.
what they called flight attendants at the time.
Oh, I see.
Um, and there were certainly other professions, but there weren't as many opportunities. And, I didn't know any woman who'd started a business, and
Uh-huh.
so it was really by default. But it
Okay.
turned out to
So,
be a good profession, and I'm
uh-huh.
glad I did it. But now it's so interesting how younger women have so many more options, and the choice you make after college or the first or second career choices you make, they don't preordain the rest of your life, which is, in law, you sort of started in law, you started in medicine, and that's what you did your entire career. Now there's so many more opportunities for mobility and moving around and trying different things.
Okay. So do you have family members who were
No,
lawyers?
no, I was the first in my family
Okay.
to be a lawyer.
Stewardess and the first.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Wow. So to kind of get into like future thinking, what's something in business or technology people aren't paying enough attention to yet?
Well, one of the areas that interests me so much is healthcare.
Hmm.
And it's an area where I think there's huge opportunity with AI, both in terms of new drug discoveries, but also just in terms of the healthcare system is so antiquated, and the opportunities to streamline a lot of workflows and make life for both patients and the doctors and clinicians better, I think is a real opportunity. And um, a lot of the companies we work with are focused on doing that, but I think that's a huge area of opportunity in business. It's challenged right now because of all the legislative and government changes that have made to the system, reducing Medicare, withdrawing subsidies for the Obamacare.
Okay.
It's really put stress on the healthcare system. That's why, these private solutions are needed more than ever.
I see. Okay. Well, to end our little session, I'm going to do a little scenario game. Kind of like, what would you do scenario.
Okay.
Okay. So you meet a young founder with a great idea, but no experience and no money. What do you tell them first?
I would tell them, go find a company to work for that's in your area of interest
field.
and learn as much as you can, not only about the business, but from the people who work there and the founders. Uh, that before you try it on your own, go live it and experience it and learn from people.
Awesome. Great advice. So, next one is a startup is growing fast, but the founder is clearly burning out. What advice would you give?
And that's a real problem for women, I think. You need,
Caring so much.
yes, yeah, and you taking care of yourself first is the most important thing. And that's easier said than done if you have certainly if you're a solo entrepreneur. But if you do have it, make sure if you can, you have the right team around you so you can take some time, because it's not going to do anyone any good if you have a breakdown or get sick. There goes the company. So it's really important to
Work-life balance?
well, no, because there isn't work-life balance
There's
if you're
not?
an entrepreneur. But it's
A lot of sacrifices.
yeah, I think it's more figuring out how to integrate work and life. So, making sure, I hear a lot of founders say, making sure that they have some period during the day, whether it's the first thing in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon, where they have time to, whether it's to exercise, to read, to meditate. But I think I think the concept of work-life balance doesn't really work for certainly for entrepreneurs or even for lawyers. It's more how you integrate those two in a way that doesn't sacrifice one for the other.
Okay. Lynn, do you sleep?
Yeah, I do.
You get enough sleep. That's good.
I do.
That's good. Gotta ask.
Yeah.
But okay, so I mean, at least, that's one thing I try to prioritize as, starting off my company
Yeah.
and is making sure I'm at least sane to push
Yeah.
through the day.
Yeah, it's important because if you don't have that equilibrium, you're gonna make mistakes. You're not gonna treat the people around you the way they should be treated, and it's a cascading situation where it certainly doesn't benefit you, and it doesn't benefit the people around you.
Okay. So the last one before we close, someone has an amazing idea, but they're too afraid to start. What's the push that they need?
That's an interesting question. I think it's, and it depends on it depends a little bit on whether it's the person asking themselves or someone else. But I think it's really the why.
The mission.
Well, why are you doing this? Is it because you've had a personal experience that has led you to feel this is a really important idea and it would have helped you? Or is it something that would help your family, your community? But I think unless there's a good answer to the why,
Mm-hmm.
I think it 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 would be hard to really pursue it and put all the effort and blood, sweat, and tears into it that you need to be successful.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Lynn Locker, thank you so much for coming to Leaders of
Yeah.
Enchantment. Where can people connect with you?
On Project W, which is www.dwt.com/Project W. Yeah, you could
We're gonna
probably,
get it
yeah,
connected.
yeah.
Awesome. And
Great.
what is something to close it off that people can expect, or some things you want to accomplish yourself in 2026?
Well, to continue to support women, one of the things we haven't talked about is I have for years run an informal salon where I support women in the arts, all across the arts, visual artists, composers. I just want to see women lead in their fields.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sandy Herzberg, welcome to Leaders of Enchantment podcast. Happy to have you here. We're here with New Mexico House South by Southwest.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I grew up in Rancho Mirage, California.
Okay.
Most people know because of Coachella.
Oh,
But otherwise, I used to have to explain it was Palm Springs, not in Florida.
okay.
But yes, that's where I grew up.
Okay.
Mhm.
I remember that place because it's almost like a desert.
It is a desert.
Can get a little dusty, as well as New Mexico.
Yeah, it's the low desert, so it was a lot hotter.
Okay. When did you come to New Mexico and start working in the field?
The field of startup-y stuff.
Yes. Yes. Tell the audience what you do right now.
I created the New Mexico Startup Alliance. I've worked in and around startups for many, many years. But I had my first entrepreneurial bug when I was working at Bloomberg Financial Markets in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw an opportunity for the company to leverage a company's assets to do public good in the Caribbean.
Okay.
So I wrote a business
Interesting.
plan as a salesperson, very first salesperson to ever write a business plan at Bloomberg, to see what if we built something to sell something that would also help the local markets, Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados. I'm talking the financial markets. And now everyone hates me there because every single salesperson has to write a business plan.
Well, I feel like that's definitely needed, right? We kind of get the lay of the land.
Well, it was an entrepreneurial venture. I was just so inspired of the idea of doing something new inside a company. And then that inspired me to go and do it again. So I then got my MBA in social entrepreneurship from the University of Southern California. And then I moved to Mexico City and I focused on saving the world through business.
Okay.
And then I ran out of money and moved home with my parents, as a lot of people after their MBAs do. And then I ended up eventually, long story short, I ran a community in Atlanta, Georgia. So after working with Mexico City, Atlanta, Georgia, always started looking at the impact side of business and profit and benefit. Finding that I had this idea to give companies what they needed when they needed it. I just didn't see in any of these ecosystems, any organization that was able to supply that. So I tried to create it myself,
Okay.
which was my first failed startup.
We all have those moments, right? But what was your turning point where you kind of were like, uh-oh, I should probably, did you immediately stop?
Um, yeah, I kind of ran
Business?
out of money and started working at another startup for 5 years in humanitarian cargo. Well, it was a logistics startup, and again, at that point, I always felt like if I was going to do something, I had to do something I'm passionate about. So I worked in
Right.
humanitarian cargo,
Okay.
and then I eventually got to New Mexico.
What is humanitarian cargo?
Oh, I was
I'm
shipping medical supplies.
okay.
Yeah. And to Puerto Rico after a hurricane.
From the United States.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yes.
From California.
No, this is when I was living in Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah, and I always just chose. I like to level the playing field whenever I can. So in really interesting, opaque industries like logistics,
Mm-hmm.
if you were one little nonprofit, you probably have to pay a lot more money because you didn't have a lot of volume of containers that you're sending. I didn't care what you did. I'd give you the best price
Yeah.
because I thought that what you were doing really mattered, and I didn't really care about making the money. I wanted to make sure that you had the impact. So I did
I
my own
see.
business that way.
Okay. Awesome. Well, so talk to me a little bit about like when did you realize, I want to work with entrepreneurs, and was what were you like as like a teenager? Were you always
So
working well with people?
it's actually, I did a job interview inside a company, and I gave an example of when I was a teenager, which is probably really not the best like resume, like job training. You shouldn't do that.
Uh-huh.
But I said, I learned to sell ads. I always could sell something I cared about. And I always had a good idea of like supply and demand. So when I was in the color guard, the flags and the rifles and the sabers, and
Mm-hmm.
we were nationally competitive, and we had to race, $30,000 or $20,000 to get to our finals. I went door to door and I sold ads for like a booklet.
Okay.
And then the team was like, could you teach the other girls to sell ads? I had
Uh-huh.
no idea I had a natural talent for that, but I always only felt comfortable because it was something that I felt very passionate about, and it wasn't hard to sell.
Right.
And that's where I feel about entrepreneurs. And when I find the ones that I think are the most beautiful people with the passion and really trying to change the world, they are our world's innovators.
Uh-huh.
Promoting them, getting them to their potential clients, it just makes sense to me, and it's easy
Right.
for me to advocate.
Okay. So what is one mistake you see founders or creatives that could make early on when selling or pitching?
Honestly, they're afraid to talk
Mm-hmm. Talk about
to anybody.
themselves?
Yes, to anybody. So,
Okay.
I deal with a lot of right-brained. Right-brained. So they're
Okay.
more of a engineering types.
Uh-huh.
I did marry a mathematician, but I call him an omnivert. So I have a lot of experience working with PhDs or advanced degrees.
Uh-huh.
But I always see that people need to connect, not necessarily on business. They need to connect on a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of mistake I see people doing is they're selling the company, not themselves. And you're not, because in the world of AI, it's really hard to cut through
Yeah.
the noise. And I subscribe to, especially on LinkedIn and stuff, talk about your hobbies, talk about what makes you authentic,
Okay.
connect with people.
Real person.
Yeah, I just had a really strange conversation with a woman from Univision, like head of Univision the other day at a random event this week. And we talked about why women should be able to expense some of the things that we feel like we have to do in our world
Uh-huh.
that men don't.
Okay.
Like, we could expense dry cleaning, but, maybe getting your nails done, your hair done, or whatever, something that might be expected of us at a professional event.
Uh-huh.
We can't expense that. So, or your wardrobe, things like that. And it's like, anyways, it was just random, and we connected. We're like, oh yeah. And so what do you do? Like, we were just talking for a long time about things that just connect with people.
Yeah.
Other than the business, and the business will come to.
Okay. Okay. Well, you came to New Mexico to start the alliance. Was this a solo project initially from the beginning?
I came to New Mexico and had 3 babies. Then I started the alliance.
Okay.
I was still working for that logistics company in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sort of felt like I really missed working with founders because I did a lot of it in Atlanta and Mexico City. And I just working in one particular startup was just making me sad because I missed that challenge and the constant mental stimulation of supporting other people. And I'm kind of person when I see a problem and I feel like I know how to fix it, or I could put the people in the room that could fix it, I really can't just let it sit.
Right.
And I started to notice that our startup ecosystem, I did a lot of research on where we've been, what mistakes we were made, what worked, what didn't work. And kind of after COVID, we had a lull of our community. And our community is lacking in some intergenerational support. So like, we don't have, people always say, oh, we don't have enough funding, we don't have corporates. I subscribe to the theory that founders at the end of the day are the only ones that are still be here. Government's going to come and go. Corporates are going to come and go, but the founders are still going to be here no matter what. And if we can get ourselves to a point of commitment on an emotional and supportive level and create trust among the community, then we will be unstoppable. Even if you have to leave New Mexico, you will come back and have a good mindset. And then that's what I saw even in Atlanta. Some of the infrastructure was built by successful founders. So yes, I wanted to build something I just didn't even take a lot of money. In the first 4 years, I just wanted everyone to just trust me and trust each other.
Okay. Well, I get it too. Like a lot of times if an opportunity doesn't happen, I mean, even for myself, I was like, I'm going to go make that opportunity, right? We're going to start connecting all together. And that's probably what's best about New Mexico, which
Part about New Mexico.
we're so excited to talk about it here in Austin, Texas at the South by Southwest.
South by Southwest is one of the most important things that I think we've accomplished, is bringing that kind of presence and bringing opportunities to people that they wouldn't have otherwise had, that has absolutely changed lives.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about South by Southwest, because you're one of the founding fathers of New Mexico House. Mothers. Call her mother.
Yes, a founding mama bear.
How did you get connected or start thinking of this idea of New Mexico House to come to Austin?
Well, it's super funny because Angelica Maces just walked in the room and the two of us did this together. I had this idea, and I was an elected advocate from my Latinx founders to represent them with Inicio Ventures to try and create a Latinx hub for New Mexico. There was a competition that they were doing. They're going to give us, I don't remember how much money. And I called a bunch of different...
A competition?
Yes, to give us a bunch of money to make a pitch competition.
Okay.
And I think they were going to give us like 50 grand or something like that.
Wow.
And that would make us, and they would like promote us and all of that. Inicio Ventures is the impact investment arm of Hispanics in Philanthropy. And this was like a couple years ago. And I contacted them, or they contacted me, and they said, okay, do you want to apply? And I was like, absolutely, I want to apply. And we were going against like El Paso, New York, Austin, other places. And I worked with a bunch of people. I worked with C&M. I worked with the Angels. I worked with NMSU. I just put them all in a room, and I said, okay, let me be the individual. And Andres Cordova and I worked together on the pitch, and like we did it all. And I remember when we did our presentation, it had to be like 15 minutes. It was like an hour-long presentation. I put in 15 minutes about the history of New Mexico, like, longest standing history we had, like our population and everything. And they're like taking notes, this group, and they're from New York, they're from LA.
Never heard of New Mexico
Never
before.
heard about the history of us. They only knew like El Paso and other places. And
El Paso's not even in New Mexico.
Exactly. But that's where they've had a lot of their relationships,
Right.
And actually just going through that process activated people's leadership in New Mexico, just in talking to them. So Angelica and I got invited to a Latinx leadership conference right before South by 3 years ago. And it was just the two of us. And we thought it was this really big conference. It was a very small one. Oracle hosted it. And we just made the best relationships. And then we went to South by Southwest afterwards.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, we made so many very important connections, including that was the year that I met Lynn Loaker's team from Project W. And then I came back and I was like, oh, you need to meet all these people. And then a lot of a snowball effect of relationships that have truly like magnified that came from here. And so after that, I was like, with the other people who've been doing this, I really bulldozed my way into like whatever they were doing. I was like, we're doing this together. Let's go.
Okay.
And I still advocate and am in charge of all of the underrepresented founder support, back channeling for everyone we bring in from New Mexico.
Okay. Wow. You told me the whole spiel and I appreciate it so much. Okay. Very cool. What advice would you give to someone, who doesn't really have the experience of networking or making their own mark, but they have an idea they want to do something that can get started?
Like if they're shy. One, I would also find your advocates.
Mm-hmm. Find your mentors.
Find your mentors, find your advocates, find people, surround yourself with people who can speak about you. Because I have done this several times for people. I meet my founders where they're at. Sometimes they're on the spectrum. And I'll put them in a quiet room and I will go out and find people and bring them to them. So if you can find somebody or someone who can think about other people in the room. If you are a person and you see someone standing by themselves, take that time, talk to them. Or if you are that person standing by themselves, try and make that relationship, that one person who can bring that in for you.
Okay. And what industries in New Mexico do you think people outside the state misunderstand about the innovation that's happening?
I think they misunderstand that we may only be about deep tech.
Uh-huh.
And they're
interesting.
Not
deep tech as in.
So right now the state, I've always said it's like our ecosystem can be loud in certain ways. Obviously, it's wonderful that our state is putting so much time and energy and money into certain sectors. So aerospace, space, the things that come out of the national labs, biotech, health sciences, things that you think you'd need a patent for.
Okay.
But we do have pockets of consumer products. We have pockets of we have growing ecosystems in other areas as well, like in SaaS. So I think that, and if you put them all together, it makes for a healthier ecosystem. So I think that people misunderstand that that's all we have.
Okay.
We do have arts. We do have everything.
So much culture.
Actually, what the fun thing about New Mexico is you could probably be a founder and have done all three. So
we're native-born hustlers out in New Mexico. There's a lot of us. Okay, awesome. Okay, well, to end this little podcast here, I want to do a little game. What would you do? Scenario.
Okay.
And we kind of had touched on, like what would be something to tell someone who wants to start something but is afraid to. But what is advice to kind of give into mental health? A startup is growing fast, but the founder is clearly burning out. What's advice you would give regarding maintaining a good mental health throughout?
I just did a post on my social media about something I find I'm very passionate about, and that's called an emotional board.
Emotion board. Okay.
I don't know if I made it up, but it's something I really advocate for. And I have an emotional board as some people, mostly women, but also a few men. There are people that I can talk to that they support me when I feel the lowest. Is that being a startup founder is such a roller coaster, and it's emotionally, physically stressful. And you need to surround yourself or have those people you can count and call and talk things through who get it, but it's not but they understand your profession, so I do have friends that have nothing to do with what I do. And they're not going to get it as much.
Hmm.
So that's what my emotional board is.
Okay, emotional board. Get it now. Like your supporters, who's backing you up as well.
Yeah, but it's about they're okay if my kids get in the middle of the phone call. You know, they understand the chaos of my life, but it's also about my professional goals and the challenges of that. I can be vulnerable with them,
Okay.
and it's not they're not taking equity in my company or anything like that. It's just pure emotional, and we're just there for each other. So
That's awesome. That's great to have. Awesome. Well, what can Leaders of Enchantment guests and listeners check you out on social media, or what are some big things that you're planning?
I'm planning on hiring people to help me with that.
Okay, get the
As a-
social media going as well.
I do have an Instagram, but I don't really use it much. I don't even know what the handle is, but LinkedIn is my main thing.
Okay.
New Mexico Startup Alliance has a LinkedIn, and my website's being revamped as we speak. And as I told you when we first sat down, somebody told me if I don't grab the mic and talk about myself, somebody else will.
Yep.
And I'm going to start embracing that, and with today.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sandy.
Thank you so much for having me.